Good evening and welcome to the June 27th Hoboken Board of Education meeting. Mr. Moffat, the statement of compliance, please.
Yes, sir. This meeting is being held in conformity to the Open Public Meetings Act. Proper public notice of the meeting was published in local newspapers on June 24, 2017 and June 25, 2017. If any board member or member of the public in attendance believes that this meeting is in violation of the Open Public Meetings Act, the Hoboken Board of Education requests that they make a statement at this time. The board wishes to make those in attendance aware that this meeting is being recorded on video and will be broadcast by the board at a later date on cable television channel 77 and FiOS channel 46. The full meeting recording will also be made available on board docs, which can be accessed through the district's homepage. The Hoboken Board of Education is committed to preserving the decorum of the public process and is mindful that we live in an electronic age of computers, cell phones, and other electronic communication devices. Nevertheless, we respectfully request that all meeting participants kindly silence their electronic devices during the course of the meeting, and if use of the device is necessary, we ask that you please leave the meeting room if you need to conduct personal business. Thank you. We'll please rise for the salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the roll call, please.
Miss Angley?
Here.
Mr. Biancamano?
Present.
Ms. Delara?
Here.
Miss Evans?
Here.
Mr. Madigan?
Here.
Mr. McNamara?
Here.
Miss Montgomery?
Here.
Miss Sobolev?
Here.
And Mr. Kleffel.
Here. First item on the agenda, of course, is always Students of the Month. Mr. Fitzhugh.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Our Student of the Month recipient from Joseph F. Brandt, Eli Gavin. No? Okay, he can stay. It's okay. It's all right. Eli was nominated by Mr. Sheridan. Eli has shown a tremendous amount of growth this school year. According to Mr. Sheridan, it was a pleasure to nominate him for the final winner of our class's Student of the Month. He has become comfortable taking risks in both the academic and social skills in his educational experience. He engages others to create cooperative group of peers during learning centers, recess, and organized play. We are also very proud of him. Eli completes all of his work independently and is a terrific speller. He's a true joy to have in class. Eli has moved up considerably in his DRA scores. He's able to read and write stories and has increased tremendously this year. Eli loves to smile and has a shy laugh that's infectious. Once he starts giggling, you know you've made a new friend in Eli. According to Eli, he loves hamburgers and the color blue. In his free time, he enjoys playing basketball with his family, and he is a fantastic dribbler. In school, his favorite subject is art and recess. Playing on the roof with his friends is his favorite part about Brandt. The student quote, "I am so excited that next year I will be able to go to school with my brother." At this time, let's give Eli a big round of applause on obtaining this tremendous honor. Calabro School Student of the Month, Aiden Benzicourt. Nominated by Mr. Zayas, a sixth grade teacher, he states that Aiden has been at Calabro since first grade and has been a part of several programs, including the Gifted and Talented program. Aiden enjoys listening to music and making videos. In the future, Aiden wants to impact the world in a way that helps it, from saving lives to making an invention that everyone will use. Aiden quotes, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Aiden is an exceptional student who is always striving to do better. Aiden is an amazing role model for his class and for Calabro. He is considerate, trustworthy, thoughtful, unselfish, and always willing to help anyone that is in need. If Aiden puts his mind to something, there is no doubt that he will succeed at it. Dr. Vespignani quotes, "Aiden is conscientious, a hardworking student who has all of the qualities we look for in a Student of the Month representative." According to Dr. Vespignani, he says, "I have been so impressed not only with his commitment to academics, but by the manner in which he conducts himself on a daily basis. I have no doubt that he will continue to excel at Hoboken Middle School." Congratulations to Aiden on obtaining this fantastic honor. The Thomas G. Connors Elementary School Student of the Month recipient, Jaden Sanabria, grade 4. Jaden was nominated for Student of the Month by his 4th grade homeroom teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez. Jaden is an energetic and enthusiastic student. He asks thoughtful questions about topics discussed in class and extends the application of his skills. Jaden has embraced the 4th grade this school year, meeting expectations to improve his writing, his reading, mathematical skills, and critical thinking skills. He is a dedicated student that consistently completes his work and reflects on areas for future improvements. Jaden is also dedicated to his family. He frequently talks with admiration and love about his mother, his father, his stepfather, and his younger brother. His younger brother also attends Connors School, and Jaden will go out of his way to check on his brother each and every single day. In addition to his academic achievements this year, Jaden has excelled at cooperative learning. Mrs. Rodriguez states, "We do a lot of partner and small group work in the class. I know I can always count on Jaden to play a leadership role during these situations." Other students will often request to partner with Jaden because they know it will be a positive learning experience. During cooperative learning, Jaden communicates effectively to keep the other students on task. Jaden has many artistic hobbies and interests. His favorite hobby is art. He says he wants to be an artist or designer when he grows up. When asked about how he felt about receiving the honor of District Student of the Month for Connors, Jaden replied, "I feel happy I'm getting this reward because I worked so hard in school." Let's give Jaden a big round of applause this evening. Our Wallace Student of the Month recipient, Caitlin Marinella. Wallace School is proud to recognize Kate of Ms. Fernandez's kindergarten class as the Student of the Month for June 2017. Kate was nominated by Ms. Fernandez, who said, "Kate shows natural leadership skills. She's determined and hardworking, as well as upbeat and cheerful. She has a generous spirit and is always eager to help her peers." According to Principal Shannon, Kate is a fantastic young learner. Her smile is always one that I see in the morning at arrival and in the afternoon at dismissal. Seeing that smile is a great way to start and end the school day. Kate is an outstanding student, shown through her dedication to academics, athletics, and her community. She is inspiring to everyone who knows her. Kate gives all in everything she does, and her friendly disposition is a constant source of comfort and joy to her friends. Kate has the heart of an artist. Ms. Fernandez's classroom was decorated with colorful, imaginative artwork all year round. She has a passion for both hockey and soccer, which takes up all of her spare time. Kate is a great protector of animals and has written and illustrated an entire book about them. That's pretty awesome. Keeping lovingly on the shelf in the library of her classroom. Ms. Fernandez went on to say, "I am confident that Kate has what it takes to be a leader and live a happy, successful life." According to Kate, it is cool and super exciting to be the Student of the Month. Congratulations, Kate, on obtaining this honor. The Hoboken, June 27th, Student of the Month from Hoboken Middle School, Nyla Garcia. The Hoboken Middle School Student of the Month is Nyla Garcia. Nyla was recommended by her homeroom teacher and English language arts teacher, Mrs. Delafave. Nyla was nominated because of her outstanding attitude, academic achievement, cooperation, and empathy towards others. Mrs. Delafave describes Nyla as extremely dedicated to her own success. Once she puts her mind to something, she will put forth the effort necessary to get the job done. She is self-motivated, focused, and diligent, as well as being confident, determined, and not afraid of hard work. No matter the task, she is ready to work and always keeps a positive outlook. These characteristics have contributed to her academic achievement. She has the ability to reflect on her performance and to welcome feedback, which she takes into consideration when completing her next task. This self-motivated student athlete is thoughtful, kind, and empathetic. Mrs. Delafave used the following quote to describe Nyla. "Follow your dreams, they know the way." This quote reminds Mrs. Delafave of Nyla because she's a young girl who knows what she wants in life. Her determination will carry to future successes. Your principal, Dr. Davis, used the following quote to describe you. "In a gentle way, you can shake the world," by Gandhi. According to Dr. Davis, she's had several opportunities to observe her in different settings as she interacts with her classmates during collaborative work assignments or share lunch with her friends. Her positive influence is contagious. Her most present achievement was Nyla's participation in the 2017 Junior Academic Model United Nations Conference. This provided her the opportunity to foster and utilize the skills of public speaking, debate, collaboration, and communication. Nyla's personal hobbies are playing sports such as soccer, basketball, and softball. They are also her sports interests. When she is in the mood to relax, she likes to play video games, such as an app called Juice Jam. Pretty cool. I gotta check that out. Her favorite subject is English language arts, especially in the writing realm. Hoboken Middle School is so proud of Nyla and her accomplishments. She exhibits the true essence of a Hoboken Middle School star: successful, talented, accountable, and respectful. Congratulations on receiving this honor. Our final Student of the Month recipient from Hoboken High School, Kiana Santiago. Congratulations. Good work. Ms. Miller states that Kiana is a self-motivated student. She comes into class and immediately gets started on the task at hand. She is never off task and is a pleasure to have in the classroom. Ms. Lachlan states, She's a very nice girl who is very polite. Kiana's a joy to have in class, and she sets the bar for the rest of her classmates. She holds high standards for herself and all those around her. In addition, she is always the first one to help if someone is struggling in class. Respectful, driven, and dedicated are words to describe you. Mr. Huggins states, Kiana is a polite student who often takes the academic risks necessary to develop as a student and a young adult. Principal Pietra states, Kiana is a lovely, quiet, and academic force. Those are the words that describe you. We are lucky enough to have her come back to the high school from County Prep this year, and she has knocked the cover off the ball. Her grades speak for themselves with her GPA over 3.5. It is her demeanor outside the classroom that makes her such an amazing young lady as well. To add to her resume, Kiana is a 3-sport athlete and is on the athletic director's list. That is pretty awesome. I look forward to watching Kiana wow us in her senior year and continue the great work that has gotten her to this stage. Kiana is a junior. She's also the member of the volleyball and softball teams. She's a member of SALT, Student Athletic Leadership Team. She is also involved with the class of the 2018 Council. When Kiana is not in school, she's employed at Shakable. She also plays on the recreational softball team, and she tutors younger children. Kiana plans to attend college to major in international business. When notified about the award, Kiana states, "Yay! I am grateful to receive this award from Hoboken High School. At this time, let's give Kiana a round of applause for obtaining this distinguishable honor." Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzhugh, and congratulations to all our students. I think our habit now is let's take a 3-minute recess to give families and kids a chance to take some photos and politely sneak out before we resume with the business part of the meeting. So we'll have a 3-minute recess, perhaps. Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. We'll resume now. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Johnson.
All right, thank you. Last meeting, I did a fairly comprehensive superintendent's report that included many topics. So there will be another comprehensive report in July, and that will include everything from our staffing updates to curriculum updates, program updates, et cetera. So for tonight, I have a few points of pride that I'd like to share with the board and also the community who may be watching or in attendance. The first one is our thespian club at the high school. We sent a small group of students from Hoboken High School to the University of Nebraska last week. They competed in a international competition in which they did a range of performances. They also had the opportunity to meet with over 32 colleges and universities from across the country. They were able to audition on the spot. I'm proud to announce that Brandon Lyons, one of our juniors, rising seniors, won an international thespian award for his monologue. And then in addition to that, we had 4 Hoboken High School students that have received college acceptances into theater programs as well as scholarship opportunities on the spot. So the trip to University of Nebraska was extremely beneficial for our students. The second point of pride that I would like to point out is that we are in the process right now of gathering information and purchasing all of our equipment for a Trout in the Classroom project for next year. So all of our schools will actually be raising trout through an initiative with the Pequot Hatchery in Warren County. So Mr. Delafave and our principals are going to be leading that, and each of the schools will be involved in the process. That kind of ties hand in hand with one of our middle school points of pride that I'll talk about a little bit towards the end of my superintendent's report. Last evening, I held a middle school parent information session. It was well attended. I want to say maybe 75 parents and students were in attendance. We covered everything from the logistics of the new middle school program for next year to the curricular program and the structure for the program. We went over school uniforms. We went over bell schedule. We went over new programs that are happening in the middle school for next year. We went over the facilities update, which I will run down for you in a moment. And we also went over the unveiling of a middle school program, after-school program for next year. That middle school after-school program will kind of be laid out very similarly to the structure of Passport to Learning, but in essence, what the middle school program is really doing is just simply organizing the clubs and intramural programs that have already been in existence into an order and a timeline after school so that the kids always have a schedule of things to do each and every day. So we're kind of excited about that. The after-school program at the middle school will include everything from clubs to enrichment activities to intramural sports and fitness opportunities, as well as academic support and homework help. So it'll be all kind of rolled in along with the conclusion of a dinner program like we have in the other schools. So that will take place next year. Now, in terms of the middle school program, as you know, the middle school will operate 7th and 8th grade next year in this building. You will see a motion on this agenda for a lease that will take care of many of the items and some of the work that's being done in the middle school. But last night I went over the classrooms, so just so the Board of Education knows holistically, as well as the families who may not have been able to attend last night. The middle school here in Demarest will include classrooms for every content area, so teachers will not be sharing classrooms. There will also be science labs that will be put into the middle school this summer. There will be Project Lead the Way classrooms. There's going to be a dedicated art room, a dedicated music room. There will also be a media research and technology center, which will double as a library media / technology center for the kids. The cafeteria is being kind of spruced up and painted and cleaned and all ready to go, so they will have a dedicated cafeteria as well. And the gym is also, some work is also being done in the gym downstairs to ensure that the floor is being done and padding in the gym and paint and new lighting and so on and so forth. In addition to that, every classroom will not only be hardwired, but it will also, the classrooms will also have wireless access. Each classroom will be equipped with a interactive LED board as opposed to a smart board. Operates very similarly, but all of the classrooms will have those, and the entire middle school will be equipped with an abundant amount of Chromebooks and carts for the kids to use just about in every period. There will be a main office, there will be a principal's office, there'll be an office space for a dean and the guidance counselor. There will also be 3 small group instruction rooms for the students for special services purposes. There will be a nurses, mobile nursing satellite station for the purpose of medical assistance and the dissemination of medicine for the kids. And there will also be a teacher workroom / conference room for the teachers to host meetings with families and parents and do common planning meetings. So the building is all set and ready to go, and I am also excited to say that we let the kids vote on a mascot. We gave them the opportunity to potentially become the junior Red Wings, but they actually decided to go in a totally different direction and have a brand new kind of independent identity. And they also decided to pick their own colors. We let them, as long as the colors were something that was doable in terms of clothing and paint and so on and so forth. So they picked a navy blue and gold color, somewhat similar to Mr. Madigan's shirt color, and navy blue, and they decided that they are going to be the Hoboken Middle School Tigers. So you will see that on the entrance, and they will enter the building on Bloomfield Street, where Hoboken Charter High School had previously entered the building. So that's our middle school update. One of the other rooms in the middle school that we are working toward developing, and on Friday we are going to be visiting the Hudson River Project in New York City, is a living classroom that can be used not only by our middle school students but by all of our elementary school students in the district. So we have a space that we are transforming, and we will begin that work this summer as well, into a living classroom that will represent the ecosystem of the Hudson River, which will include both fish, it will include plants, it will include a research center, it will also include a station where it has probes for the kids to actually do water testing and research as well. So that should be pretty exciting once that's finished. Another point of pride that I'd like to talk to the board about is we have a program that we are looking into right now with the Hoboken Housing Authority. It was brought to us by Ms. Sandra Smith. It's a program called Code It, and what it basically is a program that allows young adults originally slated for individuals from the age of 18 to 25 to receive numerous hours of instruction in the area of computer coding, and it has an internship component and a job placement component. It's been extremely successful in a few different states, and when Ms. Smith came to see me about it, she brought the individuals from Code It with her, and they proposed and asked us if we had any middle school or high school students that wanted to actually go through the program and potentially be placed in an internship and receive employment opportunities. So that's something that we are going to weave into our personal growth period at the high school next year for students who are interested in completing that program. So I received the proposal for the program, and at this point it doesn't look like there's any cost associated. It's a nonprofit group, and it seems like something that our kids would benefit from. My fifth point of pride has to do with the reorganization of the high school building, in the concept of simply reorganizing the areas in the high school so that the kids see that there is a section of the building that's dedicated to Project Lead the Way, a section of the building that's dedicated to global learning and awareness. And one of the areas that I just wanted to highlight, because it goes hand in hand with the work that we're doing at the middle school, is that this past summer we finished a brand new engineering lab at the high school. This summer we are constructing, or refurbishing, I should say, renovating, the large dance studio area, and that will be converted to Project Lead the Way Biomedical Sciences Lab. Our Biomedical Sciences program is booming right now. Many kids are interested in it, and we're designing that lab to be able to accommodate all of the learning activities that the kids are engaged in. And then lastly, I just wanted to give you a small staffing update in terms of points of pride. We right now have 16 teachers that are out on a number of professional development opportunities. Many are at advanced placement seminars throughout the state of New Jersey at different colleges and universities for everything from AP macroeconomics, AP microeconomics, also to AP physics, and AP chemistry as well. And we also have many of our teachers that are out on Project Lead the Way conferences as well. So if you follow us on Twitter, you can actually see Ms. Farouk is at a conference right now at I think it's Rowan University. She's been tweeting regarding the STEM activities that she's learning about. So we'll keep posting those. So if you follow us on Twitter, you'll be able to see those activities as well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Mr. Moffett, do you have
Yes, I have
report?
three areas to report out on. First of all, you have a listing of contracts in front of you with the red bar on top. Pursuant Public Law 2015, Chapter 47, I'm required to provide a list to the Board of Education of all contracts that have been engaged for services or products for that fiscal year. So this is the fiscal year 16-17. They're all due to be renewed, awarded, or permitted to expire for this coming year. So as you can see, the breakout, it's similar to what has been provided the last 2 years. We have the vendor name, approval date, and then the type. We've grouped them together just for ease. It is about 3 pages and includes professional contracts, student transportation contracts, as well as student tuition contracts. If you have any questions in regard to any of the vendors or contracts, you could send those to my office. I'll provide some additional detail. The second area has to do with item 10.09, which is the fiscal year-end transfer. We did discuss this at length in the Finance Committee. This is for the fiscal year-end 16-17. As we've seen in other years, the board is committed to making deposits into various reserves to improve the overall financial condition of the district. So we are looking to do that again. We have a not to exceed or a top dollar amount of $1 million, which will go into potentially 3 areas. And the action is written that we have maximum flexibility and to make a decision on where it's to go. So the first area is the maintenance reserve that it could go into up to $1 million or a combination of all 3 of these. The second would be the capital reserve, and this action would allow me to establish and transfer funds into a new reserve called the emergency reserve, and that can be used for areas or issues or items that were not previously budgeted for and were unaware of during the budget process, and therefore a budget was cast. So this will allow us to address that. The other requirement are things that are outside the board's control. We could also use the emergency reserve for that. There's a little bit of an approval process where it goes through the county office and then potentially the Commissioner of Education. But for those type of emergencies, we would look and seek to get approval prior to the transfer. And lastly, a little bit of an overview. I know the superintendent has covered all the activities and projects for the summer, including the middle school move, high school projects. So part of what the board has done in the past, and this is the second year we're able to do this, is to follow a strategy by financing these facility projects in various equipment and or ground lease arrangements. So 10.14, which is the submission of capital projects, just allows approval to the Department of Education. We could submit the projects known as the Demers Middle School renovations to the department and receive an actual project number. That project number will allow us then to pursue a ground lease agreement, which we've done last year for the high school and various other locations within the district. What is a ground lease? It's a lease for the facility that we provide to a lessor and basically has to go through another longer process where the Commissioner of Education, after an application is submitted, will then potentially approve it, and then we can then enter into that lease. So this capital project submission will allow us to get the approval from the Department of Education, move forward with that ground lease application process. The second item is 10.15, which is the approval of a concept of equipment lease. For those, if you can remember last year, again, it was 2. One was an equipment lease and the ground lease. This allows us to move forward with planning for the equipment lease. This is a faster turnaround as compared to the ground lease. So this one is first. It's about, as you can see, it's $1.7 million, and it is basically related to the network infrastructure, all the Demarest activity, the high school activity, and will cover equipment and technology related to all those improvements to be conducted over the summer, and allow us to go out and bid and secure financing. Obviously, any type of an agreement will come back to the board for final approval. Again, it was something that we bid out. We get the best rate that we can, and then enter the contract after we award it here at a later date. So that's 10.15. Another item that's related happens to be the capital reserve transfer. Again, what allowed us to conduct the work last summer is the same strategy where we moved money into our capital reserve, and the amounts that were not utilized, which was the whole amount. Last year it was about 816. We didn't need that because eventually the leasing agreements covered the total projects for the summer, so we were allowed to move that back in. So we have a total of a 3.4 reserve. So we're going to, as recommended, is 2.8 to go into those capital accounts to pay for these various improvements prior to any type of lease financing. Okay, this allows us to pursue that. Part of my responsibility as Board Secretary, Business Administrators, to certify that we have funds to conduct these various renovations and product acquisitions. So by doing this, it allows me to say we do, and we also are set up to take that money back into the reserve if it's not needed, which I expect a lion's share of that to return back to the capital reserve at the end of the next fiscal year. And lastly, you'll see next meeting, the ground lease intent. We have a notification period to about 7-8 days of notice, and then we'll be having a conversation here in July 25 about that ground lease with more specifics. That's roughly about $1.4 million at this stage, and you'll see that as part of the overall package. That ends my report. Thank you.
Why don't we go right into, because we have only Finance Committee report, right? And you have a report now?
Yeah.
Let's do that, and then we can have questions after that.
The Finance Committee met on Monday, June 21st at 6:30 p.m. In attendance were Dr. Johnson, Mr. Moffitt, Mr. Klupfel, Mr. Biancamano, Mr. McNamara, and myself. The committee reviewed all agenda items and recommend all for board approval. We have a few items which often come up with, in questions. So we have item 10.03, approval of tuition contracts. We have a number of out-of-district tuition contracts on the agenda. All are existing contracts. There are no new contracts listed here. And these are for the 2017-2018 school year and extended school year. 10.04, approval of contracts. We have 4 contracts on the agenda tonight, ranging from our vision plan for our employees. We have a software system used by the ABA program, and a psychology and educational services, as well as payments to our preschool providers. As Mr. Moffitt just mentioned, in 10.09, we are voting on the 2016-2017 year-end transfer. While this resolution is discussed each year, it's especially relevant this year as there is some uncertainty around proposed adjustments to school aid. And lastly, we also discussed the middle school renovations and the financing for those projects, as Mr. Moffitt discussed. And that's it.
Thank you. Any questions on any of the reports?
Yes.
Mr. Biancamano.
Thank you, Mr. Cawthon.
You're welcome.
Dr. Johnson, you discussed how the middle school is really coming along in this building. I was just curious, and you might have mentioned this, but I might have missed it. Any idea how many students will be attending the middle school next year?
We have, right now, our projected enrollment is 210.
210, okay, great. And then this obviously, now that the middle school is moving from Hoboken High School to here, opens up a big void at the high school. There's going to be some extra space. And I know you were discussing some programs, Project Lead the Way. Is that going to take over that space?
So right now, the space in the high school will be allocated in kind of project-oriented or topical areas. So in other words, we are going to be providing our personal growth period, which is during the day, our guidance area, child study team area, a little bit more space, so that they have the ability to run programs during during our personal growth period. So for example, right now, during that time, our kids engage in everything from SAT prep classes to some fitness classes. They participate in college and university instant decision day meetings. There's a whole host of things that take place during that time that we kind of beg and borrow for space in terms of it's a classroom that's already being used by somebody. So we're creating some dedicated space, but right now we're also looking into the possibility of the establishment of some academy programs and different things like that to draw both interest and potentially students into those programs.
And I know last year we did a number in trying to split the middle school from the high school.
Yes.
Is there going to be any work this summer in trying to open that back up, or?
Can you
So
explain more?
last year we kind of divided the middle school out of the, not kind of, we did divide the middle school as separate from the high school. Is there going to be, I guess, work done through the facilities department to open it back up so the high school has additional space?
Okay, so the work that Mr. Biancamano is talking about is the moving of kind of a panel of double doors that were further back, creating a smaller middle school space. So what we did was we simply moved those to create a larger space, which captured 3 additional classrooms for the middle school. Those double doors existed anyway, now they're just a little further, and they'll remain open. However, the area where the middle school wing will next year become a wing for global learning and global awareness. So our Classroom Without Walls program will operate out of there for our international travel. Our new Mandarin Chinese program will operate out of that area. So that space will still exist, and it doesn't require any additional work, construction, renovations, anything.
And no cost for that matter.
And no cost for that.
Right. Thank you. And then just to follow up on Ms. Angley and Mr. Moffitt's reports regarding 10.09 when we're talking about a reserve, and I know Ms. Angley mentioned it, that there is some uncertainty down in Trenton when it comes to school funding, and we did discuss this at length last week, that there is a proposed bill on the table where $800,000 is going to be taken from this district. So Mr. Moffitt, and obviously it's just a bill and nothing has passed yet, I was just curious if you have an update on that bill. I know you've been speaking down to people you know down in Trenton and other districts.
Yeah, I've been watching the newspapers and news forums. There doesn't seem to be much of a change outside of what we discussed. The likelihood is that I'm hearing it has to do with additional state aid being provided. It sounds like there's a ongoing chorus or increasing chorus of districts that are affected negatively for the redistribution portion of what was advanced by the legislature. So I know we're down to I think it's going to be 3 days soon about a government shutdown and all that drama. But I think when it finally shakes out, the potential would be to have additional state aid, so we would have a net neutral impact on our budget, which is a good news if we hear that, because it's very rare you see the government go in and take aid away from district once the taxes have been provided, or at least the amount of taxes that we need to raise goes to the county freeholders. And tax bills go out, and we're in that process now. So it's kind of hard to undo that, and most legislative initiatives tend to stall out. But I haven't heard of the ongoing discussions back and forth. The last I heard is that the governor was open to it at one point, but that the threatened government shutdown, he was reconsidering, but it sounds like he did get a lot of what he was looking at or looking for in the legislation that has advanced to his office. So we'll have to take this wait-and-see attitude, but I do think it's going to be, the more likely scenarios will have a net neutral impact.
And you mentioned something which I think is important to mention in public. You mentioned in the Finance Committee last week that this has happened to us before. I mean, not this much money, but it was about half, it was about $400,000. And we did cover it through reserve and tightening up the budget, and I just want the public to be aware of that. Right. That's right.
Could I ask a question on that issue? And I think more towards us as a board as a whole, maybe as the board members, we'd like them to vote against it, our representatives. If I would think so, because we're losing money. I think maybe as board members, we should call our 3 representatives, which are Senator Stack, Shapiro, and Raj, I can't think of his last name. I think those are 3 representatives who we put in office if we voted. But I think we should, as board members, maybe reach out if you feel comfortable and ask them to vote against it, since it hurts our district. It's just a suggestion, nothing else.
That's a good suggestion, John. Thank you.
So, and I think the last time we had a freeze on spending, right, to cover some of the cost of the cuts that were made.
Right. A couple years back, the department adjusted our state aid and reduced it by a significant amount.
Yeah.
And we knew early enough that we were able to curtail a lot of the spending to make up that difference, to cover that shortfall. We did that, and we were able to move forward that following year. So, yeah, that's exactly right. And that was something quite recent, I would say, within the past 4 years, since my tenure here, at least. It's not a fun process to go through because everything you budget for academically, I have to be the one to sit with the superintendent and the principals and come up with a plan of where to reduce, and we try to minimize the impact on the instructional area. But a lot of times, if it's a big dollar amount you're looking for, you can't help but cut in some of those areas. It's not a pleasant process for anybody.
Any other questions? I would only chime in, I don't have a president's report, but just remind everyone here, we're having an executive session at the end of this meeting to discuss certain personnel issues. There will be no action taken after that meeting, but I think we'll save that to the end and give anybody a chance in the public here a chance to go home a little bit earlier. We will come back and simply close the meeting but not vote on anything. That takes us up to public comments on agenda items only. Mr. Moffett?
We have one listed for the agenda items only, and it's Roseanne Versace.
Good evening, Roseanne Versace, fourth grade teacher. This is actually just an update on what you were just discussing, so I thought I'd share it with you. The budget bill was introduced and was released in both the Senate and Assembly Budget Committees due to NJA members' advocacy. Instead of cutting $46 million from districts that are considered overfunded, the cuts have been reduced to $31 million. And there's also language in the bill that says districts districts that are cut can now get a loan, but they didn't specify where they'll get the loan from. So that's the latest from the State House. So have a good summer, everybody.
Thank you, Roseanne. That brings us up to approval of the consent agenda. First thing I'll ask for is a motion on the consent agenda.
Motion. Second.
That's a motion from Ms. Evans and a second from Ms. Montgomery. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Mr. Biancamano.
Yeah, just a question and a comment. Dr. Johnson, 9.11, the approval of staff for summer theater camp. I know we spoke about the band camp or the music camp last meeting, and I know you mentioned theater camp, I just didn't recall. Is this going to be funded by a surplus as well, or is this covered by tuition or any type of grant?
So the theater camp and the band camp are funded through the district.
So, just through
Yes.
the regular operating budget? Okay.
Correct.
All right, thank you. And then I just want to make a quick comment. There are a number of appointments or a few appointments on the agenda tonight, and many of them are residents of Hoboken, and I just think that's fantastic. I feel like a broken record saying it every time we see many of the agenda items, and they're good qualified candidates from this city. So I think that's important as one of the largest employers in this city to hire from within, and I commend the administration for doing so. Nothing else, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Then we can call the roll.
Ms. Angley?
Yes.
Mr. Biancamano?
Aye.
Ms. Delera?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Abstain on 10.02, check number 55289. Yes on everything else.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Mr. McNamara?
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery?
Yes.
Ms. Sobola?
Abstain, 10.02, 55289, and yes on everything else.
And Mr. Kleffel?
I too must abstain on item 10.2, check number 55289, and vote yes on everything else. Thank you. Motion passes?
Motion passes, yes.
Lovely. And that takes us to public comments on agenda or non-agenda items.
I have 3 speakers listed. The
Please.
first speaker is Chris Adair.
Good evening. Chris Adair, I live at 456 9th Street. I live right next to JFK Stadium. And I came tonight to talk about the baseball backstop that has been was purchased quite a while ago, but has yet to be built and installed. So I have been in contact with Mr. Callaghy on numerous occasions, and I think now maybe you're on the facilities committee now. I know it used to be Peter, but so I had kind of included maybe a couple months ago you guys on an email, and then I was just kind of chatting with Mr. Callaghy, and I know that there had been some issues with, I think, the welding or a piece that wasn't sent. So there's been a lot of back and forth. To give some of you the background, just a reminder, the backstop that had been being used at JFK Stadium for many years was a smaller backstop. And our building, which abuts the stadium, has had, it's older, the wall is older, the building is older. However, there has been a lot of damage sustained from various baseballs flying into the courtyard, into the street. It really wasn't containing the baseballs in a proper fashion. And I had talked to the board, in front of the board before and had discussed that, and the facilities group and the board, and Mr. Callaghy deemed it that it would be a good idea to attempt to have a bigger backstop when the new stadium went in, or when the new field went in. So that was great, and when I had talked to Mr. Callaghy about that, he said, well, it wasn't quite as big of a backstop as maybe we might have that I might have liked. Let me rephrase that. But that it did have the ability to expand if need be. So I was pretty excited last fall when we talked about it, because I thought, well, we could get it up and running before baseball season starts, and then we can test it out before our condo association actually implements a whole new back wall on the back of our building. But unfortunately, with the delays, we haven't been able to do that. So I don't quite know where we're at, because I haven't really been able to connect with Mr. Callaghy in terms of where we're at with the wall or with the backstop being assembled. So I'm urging the board to kind of maybe make this a priority. I know you guys have a lot going on, but it's really important to us. We're really trying to kind of make some improvements along our building as well, and the backstop is something that would help us do that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Adair.
Next speaker is Eileen, and forgive me if I get this wrong, McGurk. Was I close? Oh.
Hi, my name's Aileen McGurk. I live at 62 Patterson Avenue, and my husband and I had sent a letter to the board last week regarding some concerns about transparency with the kindergarten placement process, and also about issues regarding the socioeconomic diversity within the district. And I was very happy that President Klupfel reached out to me the end of last week and was willing to open up a dialogue. And today I spoke with Dr. Johnson at length. And as a result of that discussion, I still wanted to come out tonight and express concerns that I know that I still have, but talking to Dr. Johnson was great and alleviated many of them, and concerns moving forward for the district. Many of my friends and neighbors from southwest Hoboken are here tonight because all of us have small children. Many of them will be headed into the district schools. Some of us have kids who are 3 or 4 years out from that. But there's a large number of children in southwest Hoboken, and obviously not going to be enough kindergarten seats to accommodate everyone moving forward. So Dr. Johnson did walk me through the kindergarten placement process and why the kindergarten sections at Connors were reduced from 4 to 2, and also explained the addition of special ed classroom at Connors and the 2-mile square preschool classrooms. So as a parent in the Southwest, that made me really happy to hear, and I think that's also going to help move the demographic alignment of Connors more in line with the district overall. I'm still left with 3 major concerns, though. One is the lack of availability for kindergarten seats, not just in Southwest Hoboken, but it seems like all over Hoboken. Don't have any new buildings. The buildings that we have seem to be at capacity, and there are a large number of families planning to stay, and a large number of families in our neighborhood where there won't be enough seats for them at Connors. They may have to travel to Wallace. My second issue is communication from the district, specifically around those placement issues. And then my last issue would be managing diversity within the district, which I think is probably the greatest strength that this district brings that may not have been leveraged to the extent that it could be. And I know that for some parents that I've talked to in recent months and weeks, some of that can be a little off-putting to them. Some of them think they moved to New Jersey and it's a suburb, this is a city, but that's a conversation that I think needs to be had, that this is a diverse district from both a racial and a socioeconomic standpoint, and how can we make our friends and neighbors more comfortable with that? So in terms of communication, again, I appreciated speaking with Dr. Johnson today, but having been here at Demarest for 2 years of preschool and having attended the kindergarten information session and gone out on the tours, you know, once you did that, there was crickets that came out from the district. And we reached the point in time where it got late in the year and people were eager to get their placements. And then there was the Hoboken Reporter article, which Dr. Johnson and I discussed today, which I think was done perhaps with good intention, but certainly didn't send what I think was an accurate message around placements. Then people, you know, got their letters, and a lot of folks from our neighborhood who thought they might get placed at Connors were placed uptown. I said to Dr. Johnson today, I probably would have cried had I been placed at Wallace, because it would have required a lot of wrangling on the part of my family to be able to deal with that on a daily basis. But you still have, you know, just 15 seats for new families coming into Connors, and that doesn't seem to be enough to meet the demand within the neighborhood. And the communication really was woefully underused. You know, for families here at the pre-Ks within the district, you have the channel of the family advocates to reach out to us. You also have great opportunities to promote all of the things that are going well, that don't send people to the recesses of the internet to find out data about schools that's, for the most part, outdated and doesn't represent all the hard work that everyone sitting here and that every teacher and every parent involved in the PTO puts into it. Helen Bishop is here tonight. She has a son who's going into first grade at Connors. She's an active part of their PTO. I think that for folks like that who've put a lot of work into a school, that then someone decides not to send their kid there purely because of what they read on the internet, it is kind of sad. And I think the district could do a much better job of showcasing that, potentially, you know, maybe rebranding Connors at one point in time, but at least putting out information from a district standpoint that talks about everything that's going right. It's a missed opportunity as far as I can see it. And one of my neighbors mentioned to me, it's Jennifer Kim, who's here tonight, it's the Zillow effect. People go online, they look at these different ratings, and they go, oh gosh, I don't know, you know, do I want my child to be at the school that isn't represented well? And if they aren't fortunate enough to have friends or neighbors with children at the school, they feel uneasy. And I think that's something that the district could do a lot to overcome, potentially in partnership with parents or with, you know, others at the school. And then in terms of, you know, the availability, if there's potential to increase kindergarten seats or look at, you know, potentially building new facilities, consider doing that in the downtown area. You know, between south of 7th Street, you've really only got 62 seats available for kindergarten, and I'm sure that there are a lot more than 62 kindergartners coming from all of Hoboken south of 7th Street, not just the southwest. And then in terms of the issue regarding what I see as socioeconomic disparity, especially when you look at the numbers for Brant versus the numbers for Connors, it's disturbing to me as a person who wants to see all of our kids go to school in schools that are representative of the district as a whole. I know Dr. Johnson walked me through what the numbers will look like, what the potential numbers will look like for the incoming kindergarten class and how that will shift for Connors, but I still think that there is certainly more work to be done to look at how can the district potentially even those out, but also looking at how do we take the diversity that Hoboken has in spades across all factors and make that something that our schools are celebrated for, as opposed to something that, you know, may potentially be off-putting to folks. I've had, you know, great conversations with people who are excited about Connors, and I've had conversations with folks who are very uneasy about it and maybe haven't been connected to the right people to talk to. But you know, my husband and I are really committed to having our daughter there. I said to Dr. Johnson, she could be like, you know, a lone child in a school full of aliens. I would probably still have her there because traipsing across town doesn't work for us. But I know on behalf of myself, my husband, And my friends and neighbors from the Southwest, you have a large community that's committed to making the school as great as it potentially can be, but also wants their kids to go to school in our neighborhood. And it's a little, it's a little depressing when you think about the fact that you've bought a home, you're staying there, you want to be there for some time, and you're looking at a 1 mile walk or bus ride across town in the morning for most of these folks before they're going to work. And I know for us, it would, really require a lot of, and I'm sure for other people, it would really require a lot of planning and a lot of work. And I think during the kindergarten placement process at the open house, mentioning that, hey, you know what, you may not be placed close to your house, and you may need to, think about the possibility of being placed at Brant or being placed at Wallace, regardless of whether you live on Hudson Street or you live on Harrison Street. And I don't think that was communicated very clearly. So I hope this can be the start of a dialogue. I know that many of us in the Southwest would like to continue talking with the district and would like to work not just to improve Connors, but to help improve all of the schools. So, and if any of you have questions for me or want to reach out to me at any point in time, I know you all have my phone number and email address. I'm really a very short person who's not very scary, despite what I might sound like in the written word. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just answer one thing on that? I cannot speak to the placement part, that's not part of the board, but I'd just like to get into a small part of it about the future. Dr. Johnson and Mr. Callaghy have brought up the start of the conversations before I was on this committee, but it's going forward about our future and about our space and about the community growing. So just so you know, the superintendent and the director of facilities have brought it to our attention in facilities, and we're working with them to hopefully something in the future.
And we have one more speaker?
That was the last speaker list.
Okay.
There's two. I had two.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Maybe I said, did I say three? I apologize.
Well, here comes one.
We have, I had,
I'm happy to be the third. Dr. Johnson, members of the school board, thank you for hearing me today. My name is Gilbert Seda. I'm a resident of Hoboken. I live at 947 Bloomfield Street. My daughter just graduated from the pre-K4 program, the HOPES program at the Brant School, and she was recently placed into Wallace. The reason that I, the reason that I'm speaking with you today is because of an issue that we experienced with respect to our placement that I think raises a more serious issue that was alluded to with respect to last speaker, transparency within the kindergarten placement process and the process itself that's in place. During the last school year, about December, we moved from Garden Street near 13th Street and closer to Wallace to, Bloomfield Street, 947 Bloomfield, which is literally about a block and a half from Brant. We sold our house, we purchased a new house. We notified our advocate within the HOPES program. We told my daughter's teachers who were aware, they walk by our house all the time. But we were never told that we actually needed to fill out any kind of paperwork. In preparing for this meeting, I went on their website, found that there's a nice 19-page registration packet that includes all sorts of residency. You have to have 2 forms of residency and all that. But none of that was actually required to be completed before any of the placements were actually made. We never had to fill out anything. We just got a letter last week that said, congratulations, you're now in Wallace. It was addressed to our old address. So there was no process in place for us to update our address to prove our continued residency. And for us personally, it's not a huge deal. I reached out to Principal Rodriguez and members of the school board and said, there's this issue. We're literally very close to Brant. We'd like to continue to have our daughter there. For again, the reasons it's certainly more convenient, and we like having our daughter in the school that's in our neighborhood. It's, anyways. The more serious issue is that there's almost certainly many children who have moved out of Hoboken or are no longer eligible to be students who have been placed through this process. And there's no way for the school board to have found that out because people weren't required to submit their registration in advance. So as you're deciding for example, how many Connors classes to have or where to move people around. You're dealing with, at best, one-year-old information, maybe more, and so it seems like you're at a bit of a disadvantage informationally with respect to having good placement within your community, so that, as the prior speaker said, you can have people going to their neighborhood schools and not traipsing all the way across town. If it's an issue of manpower, I can certainly understand that. I mean, it's daunting, the whole registration process. I know a number of friends of ours, other parents within our classes have had issues with respect to placement. And to the extent it's something that needs to be done, I think it should have been done before any of the placement was actually done. But to the extent the school board wants to remedy this issue, I'm certainly happy to organize some of the other parents to reach out to folks who have registered or are registered for school and actually get confirmation that they're in fact residents still and where they are, and make sure that that process is in place so that people can be, so that the placement can be a little bit more rational. So I want to raise that issue. I would also mirror some of the comments from the last speaker, the comments with respect to transparency in the process. In going through all this and speaking with people, I watched the last school board meeting on YouTube. I appreciate that they're up there. It's actually a very good thing. But the last school board meeting said that there would be sort of a three-part process in terms of deciding where placement is done. It was, I think, special needs, and then siblings, and then just physical location. In speaking with people, we've heard that perhaps there was a lottery for spots at Brant. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Perhaps, Dr. Johnson, you could put on the record at this meeting how the process was actually done. I mean, you had that conversation with the lady, and I appreciate that. But just so it can be clarified for the public so that they know, that would be helpful. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let me address the first piece, and that is there's a difference between residency registration and a change of address. A change of address is something very clearly that the providers at the preschool program, as well as the clerks and secretaries in each of the buildings, take care of. So based on your situation or any parent situation in that matter, when someone brings to our attention that they have moved from one place in Hoboken to another place in Hoboken, what typically happens is the main office changes the person's address based upon a new lease or the bill or a driver's license, all of the things that require proof of residency, and they simply show that to the clerk and it's put into the Genesis system. It's changed immediately. It appears that in this particular situation or in other situations possibly, I don't know, but this is one of the first that I have heard of this. I don't think that this is a registration issue. This is an issue where an advocate from the preschool provider might not have clearly communicated that, because I have seen providers in both Miles Square and Hopes in each of the locations make sure they inform families that if you do by any chance move, that you need to make sure you let the school know or the main office know. We change addresses as people change apartments in town or residences in town pretty frequently. So next year we'll make sure that we put out in the newsletters each week and the communication from the schools. I'll make sure I remind the preschool providers in particular that that has to be done. As you know, as a school district and most school districts, they do not re-register students every single year. You register upon entrance into the school district, and for the most part, it's a fairly honors-based system. If you move out of the district, you are asked to move out of the district and attend the school district where you live. We are a interesting district because we're a New Jersey school choice district. A lot of people get confused. They think school choice is related to the choice of what school you're going to go to in Hoboken. Has nothing at all to do with that. We are a New Jersey Department of Education sponsored and approved school choice district. And basically what that means is that we have seats at certain grade levels that are open, particularly at the higher grade levels, high school in particular, middle school as well, where we have some open seats, where children from other districts can apply to take a seat, and then the school district receives aid or tuition for that particular child coming into the district. Because we are a school choice district, what that means is families that move out of Hoboken during a particular school year have the ability to be converted for the year so that they can stay in the district, and once they are converted for the year, they have the ability to apply in the school choice program for the following year. We have not done a re-registration, so I'm completing my second school year here. We have talked about, as a Board of Education, re-registering the entire district in order to gain some clarity on our school students, to ensure that everybody is in fact residents of Hoboken. But again, very different than a change of address. So if you move from one residence in Hoboken to another residence in Hoboken, you should not and do not need to fill out a 19-page registration form or anything along those lines. You simply need to inform, or your provider should be informing you on a pretty regular basis that if that happens, please let them know so that they can update your student information in the system. So from that piece, that's kind of how we operate there. On the second part of the question, in terms of transparency and the kindergarten placement, kindergarten placements are done based on the address that's in Genesis. That is one of the factors that happens. So we follow the system very clearly, and I think what happens in Hoboken is people mix and confuse the preschool placement process with the kindergarten placement process sometimes. The kindergarten placement process is a process by which students do not necessarily, and families do not necessarily, have the opportunity to just pick the elementary school that they will attend. We have competing interests that happen as a result of that comment or that argument that kind of exists out there. We have some that want neighborhood schools, and then we have some that want the choice to go to whichever school they want. So no matter what, it's two competing interests that are happening at one time. So the process that the school district uses for kindergarten is a very simple process, and that is the first thing that the school district does is they look at all of the needs of our children that are in pre-K4, or the children that actually do register in the district new, and we look to see if there are any kind of special programs that are required for the child, if those special programs do exist in any of our elementary schools that are in isolation. So in other words, if there is a special education program that the child is in need of, or something along those lines, that's where the children would be placed. But one of the things that I had spoken with a parent, to a parent on the phone today, is that in the past, the Wallace Elementary School had predominantly been the school that provided the services for special education. Clearly, if we are going to continue to expand all of our schools and make sure that we're creating a comprehensive program in each of our schools, we have decided to open up special education services at Brant next school year for September, and we have also expanded special education services at Connors as well. So why is that, and why did we make the decision to do that? We made the decision to do it for a couple reasons, and that is because we believe that children at each of the elementary schools should be served in the school that they're in. And the second thing that we saw happening was a trend by which if a child was showing any kind of fragility in terms of learning or social and emotional growth, and they were at a school other than Wallace, if they were then deemed eligible for special services at any time in the school process, they would be asked to transfer from their school to the Wallace Elementary School in order to be served. Now, not only does that displace the child with special needs, but it also displaces the child's entire sibling network as well. So if a child is at Connors with a brother and a sister and needs special services, it's not only that child that's going to Wallace, but it's the child as well as the brother and the sister of that child in many instances. So that created a little bit of a problem. So we decided to expand those services, but that's the first thing that we look at. The second thing that we do look at is sibling placement, and the reason that we do that is simply to ensure that if we have kids that are placed in particular elementary schools and they're in second grade or third grade or all the way up to sixth grade, and they have a youngster that's coming into a sibling that's coming into kindergarten, we try to keep the families together. Everyone seems to understand that. It's the last part that seems to create the conflict. And this is where we are in a almost a competing and ongoing debate regarding placements for kindergarten, and that is we have 4 elementary school buildings that house kindergarten, and those 4 elementary school buildings that house kindergarten are all of different sizes, and they all hold and host different amounts of sections. If we can wave a magic wand and kind of even out those sections everywhere and just kind of say, well, we're going to have this many sections in this elementary school and this many sections in that, it might make it a whole lot easier. But one of our innate issues that we have is Calabro only runs 1 section of every grade level. So that kind of takes Calabro off the table. Then we look at our other schools and we look at exactly where we are. And one of the things that I spoke about with Ms. McGurk today is, maybe it may have been a different parent that I spoke to, is at our elementary schools, because of the difference in pace and development in the city of Hoboken, what has happened is pockets of growth have popped up in different parts of the town. And as a result of that, with the development in different places, it has created demand at different times in different elementary schools. So to give you a perfect example, Wallace Elementary School, if any of you in the audience are teachers or anyone watching are teachers, you will know that what creates consistency in a school building is when you have the ability to schedule in a way that is somewhat consistent, meaning that you are running sections of grade levels that are somewhat consistent from kindergarten to 5th grade or 6th grade. It is very difficult to operate a school where you have 4 sections of one grade, 7 sections of another grade, 2 sections of another grade, 1 section of another grade, all in one school. Why is that difficult? Because your related arts are all, if we want to have a consistent philosophy on the programs that we're developing and designing and rolling out for kids, then the schedule needs to consistently be able to support those programs. And by always having multiple and different sections, it does create some problems. Wallace is our largest elementary school, but we are at a point right now where Wallace is best suited as a 4 to 5 section elementary school. Maybe 5 sections is just about the max of what we can operate. Next year, for the first time, and I talked about this from the minute I got in the district, that the varying sections were really problematic from a scheduling perspective, and they created inefficiency in staffing. So as a result of that, we are at a point next year where we have evened Wallace out from 2nd grade up through 5th grade. So we will have 5 sections of 2nd grade, 5 sections of 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. The following year, our hope is that that will obviously go to 6th grade. Our kindergarten in Wallace, and the reason that we put the 7 sections of kindergarten in Wallace, and we've had 7 sections of kindergarten in Wallace before, from what Mr. Shannon has told me on record, is that we usually start our kindergarten classes off with a larger number, and the following school year we reduce that number. And sometimes people in the public think it's because there's a flight out of Hoboken after kindergarten. We have 4 sections in some places and they go down to 3, and all of a sudden people think, oh, it's because children are leaving. When the issue really is we try to keep our kindergarten numbers very low, and when the children go to 1st grade, we condense a section either after kindergarten or first grade for efficiency purposes. So Wallace typically will operate with a certain number of sections, and then the following year they will go down. Last year, we only operated 4 sections of kindergarten in Wallace because we expanded kindergarten sections in other places just to kind of get the schools moving a little bit. But as you know, Brant is going down a section in kindergarten. We had 6 sections of kindergarten this year. Next year, that grade is going to 5 sections. The Connor School had 4 sections of kindergarten. Next year, it's going to 3 sections of kindergarten. It has nothing to do with children leaving, and it also has nothing to do with us making a philosophical decision to eliminate classes. It really has to do with a pattern that you see in kindergarten. You like to have your class sizes as small as possible, and in first grade, we want to keep those class sizes still small, but for efficiency purposes, we usually will collapse. And that's kind of what happens. But at Wallace, we do know that there is a trend after and beyond that we will typically, because Wallace is so large, throughout the span of children being there from kindergarten through 6th grade, we will lose 10 to 12 kids on average each year in Wallace. Now, it used to be more, but what it's looking like now is it's hovering right around, 12 students or so. That means that we're seeing that one additional drop. So the choice to have 7 kindergartens places us in a position to then have 6 first grades, and then as that grade continues, it will be a 5-section grade level. And so therefore, we predict that in 2 years, after 2 years, upon the start of the 3rd year, Wallace will be a consistent 5-section elementary school. So that's great, and then Calabro will be a 1-section elementary school, which we know. Brant is a little bit skewed as well. We have 6, 5, and 3. But you have to remember, we have 28 sections of preschool in Brant. So the growth in Brant, as we continue to develop that elementary school, we as a board have to have conversations about where will we house additional preschool sections, because the way to expand our K-6 program or our K-5 program is for that purpose. So while people ask us where are the seats for kindergarten, we are a public school district. We will never not have seats for kindergarten. We have to have seats for kindergarten. We can't say we don't have seats for kindergarten. But it will require the Board of Education and myself to have conversations about, will 6th grade ultimately come out of the elementary schools and become part of the middle school process in order to free up classrooms in the different elementary schools? Will we need to find different places for some of our preschool classes to operate so that it frees up some additional spaces as well? This year, the Department of Education granted us 4 additional preschool classrooms for September. Those 4 additional preschool classes are pre-K 3 classes. We made a commitment to Southwest Hoboken to bring 2 of the preschool classes back to St. Francis. So we're also trying to do the same thing that we're doing in Wallace with our preschool provider locations as well. So by adding the 2 preschool sections back to St. Francis, it puts us back to 3 pre-K 3s in St. Francis and 3 pre-K 4s. It's perfect. It's a perfect mix. Where were we going to put the other 2 new preschools? And that was a big question for us. We can't put them in Brant. We don't have room in Brant. We can't put them in Demarest because we don't have any more room in Demarest. We could have asked Rue to see if we were able to put one of the classrooms in Rue, but what we decided to do was put the preschool classes in Connors as well, and to operate those 2 classes in Connors. The question then came up, well, why do we have 2 additional pre-K 3 classes in Connors? Aren't we going to run out of room? It's like, there's always the question that comes up, but I have to tell you there's a reason behind it, and that is Next year, we will have a pre-K 4 and a pre-K 3 on the main level of Connors. And in the lower level of Connors, we will be operating 3 pre-K 3 classrooms. The following year, when the pre-K 4 rises to a kindergarten, and I can't guarantee where that kindergarten, where those children will actually go for kindergarten because we haven't assessed program needs or anything like that. But what will happen is then there will be 2 pre-K 4 sections on the first floor of Connors. And then we will have 1 pre-K 4 downstairs, and we will have 2 pre-K 3 sections at Connors. Those pre-K 4s will then move up, the pre-K 3s will move upstairs, and we will go back to the pre-K 3 rotation. So yes, there is an odd number of preschool classes at Connors, I understand that, and we will always have 1 additional class rotating each year of a different grade. And that's ultimately what's going to happen. So it is clear from this long presentation that we have to have conversations about, number one, our facilities and our space. We have to have conversations about our enrollment. And as we talked about before, one of the issues that we're trying to wrap our hands around are the requirements that are related to demographic studies, and the fact that when you look at live births in our demographic studies here, the live births are coming from the hospital in Hoboken, which is a requirement in the demographic study. I'm not really sure how many people are giving birth to babies in the hospital in Hoboken. And so what happens is our long-term demographic data, which is done the way it's required to be done, is off right from the start. So we are operating off of using realistic data that we have to use in order to know where our placements are going to be. So we will continue to have that dialogue. We are not doing it, we are not avoiding those conversations, but one of the things that I think is really important that did come out of the last maybe week and a half regarding the conversation around Connors is that there are parents in all sections of the community that want to be involved in those conversations regarding our enrollment patterns and our school buildings, and I think that's going to be really important. So we will absolutely make a commitment to that, but I want to make it very clear from a transparency perspective, and that is that our preschool placements, although I know people want preschool placements that are tied to elementary schools, it is logistically impossible to place children in preschool classrooms in our schools and then ensure that those preschool classroom placements will then lead to a seat in that school. It doesn't work. We have 28 classrooms in Brant. We have 6 kindergartens right now. We have 4 preschool classes at Wallace. We need more than 4 kindergarten classrooms. We are going to have 6 sections at St. Francis. We don't have kindergarten at St. Francis. So we do have to come up with, and it would be great if there was a scientific process for it. We do the best we can based on distance to schools and siblings and so on and so forth. But until we can come up with something that is nailed down, we will continue to have debates about competing interests in the location of the schools.
This year.
Yeah, this year we have 3 sections at Connors. We operate 3 sections on the first floor of Connors. Next year we will continue to operate the 3 sections, but we're adding 2 additional sections at Connors. So there'll end up being 5 sections of preschool at Connors. This year there's 3.
I think you're talking about, there's 4 sections of kindergarten this year that are going down to 3 sections of first grade. I think that's...
Oh, that was it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Correct. Yes. Thank you.
Sorry.
It's complex, as I think we all know. I would just like to say, I mean, that most of us here are, concerned citizens like yourselves. I mean, that's what we're here to do, is to service, the educational needs of this town. So the idea of just continuing this conversation, I think you and many people know that, a phone call is sometimes the best way to get an answer, and that the superintendent and board members are receptive all the time. So, I mean,
It's on the website?
Oh, sorry?
What phone number? I said you could check on the website. All of our numbers, well, not our phone numbers, but our emails are on the website, and all the staff numbers are on the website.
And the town is changing, and facilities is something that we are addressing, and we're not flummoxed by it yet, but it's on the horizon. We see it coming. Did anybody on this board see you coming? And I don't mean you personally, but the new residents, the 35,000 population from 20 years ago to 55,000 now. I've talked to the planning board, as they're revising the planning board. It's like, what are they zoning for? What do they want the city to be, so that what we can anticipate what's coming 10, 15, 20 years from now. The city didn't anticipate this, the school board didn't anticipate this when they were selling school buildings for $1, 20 years ago. How many, you drive around town, I can think of 3 former school buildings that are now residential units, or 2 residential and 1 other used for educational purposes. And there's probably more, that were torn down. So it's a living thing, but we need you engaged. So I appreciate your coming here. I think we all do. Thank you.
Okay. No.
Okay. That concludes the business part of the meeting. We will be going into executive session now. And as I said, we might be half hour or an hour maybe.
You need a motion?
So we're not going to take any action when we come back. So I wouldn't really recommend sticking around for longer. But I will need a motion to go into executive session.
Motion.
Second.
Ms. Sobolov and Ms. Angley. This is for the purpose of to discuss personnel, which is allowed by statute, right? Yeah. All right, it's 9:02 p.m. We've just come back from executive session. I need a motion to resume the meeting.
Motion.
Second.
And with no further business, can I have a motion to close the meeting?
Motion to close. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.